Welcome back to our channel, where today we're about to uncover one of the Bible's most mysterious and thought-provoking stories. What if I told you that a king, once at the peak of power and glory, was turned into an animal by the hand of God? Yes, you heard that right. King Nebuchadnezzar, ruler of the mighty Babylonian Empire, was transformed into a beast, crawling on all fours, eating grass, and living like an animal. But why? What could provoke such a dramatic judgment from the creator of the universe? This is a story that raises so many questions. Questions that might have crossed your mind before. How does a man who once stood at the height of his glory, commanding armies and kingdoms, end up living in the wild like a wild creature? What did this supernatural transformation really mean? And what lessons can we draw from it today? I know you're curious. This story holds some of the deepest lessons on pride, divine power, and the overwhelming sovereignty of God. And trust me, by the end of this story, you'll see success, humility, and the role of God in your life in a whole new light. But first, I want to hear from you. What do you think God was trying to show Nebuchadnezzar? And what does that mean for you? Drop a comment below with your thoughts, and if you're ready to dig deeper into this powerful narrative, make sure you hit that like button and subscribe. You don't want to miss what comes next, because what happened to Nebuchadnezzar may just change the way you understand the power of God's judgment and mercy. Stay with us until the end, because we're about to uncover truths that can completely reshape how you think about your relationship with God and the lessons He's trying to teach us every single day. Trust me, the truth hidden in this story will leave you questioning everything you thought you knew about power, pride, and divine intervention. Let's dive in and uncover why God turned King Nebuchadnezzar into an animal, an act that echoes through history, revealing timeless truths for us all. Nebuchadnezzar, the king who became a beast, God's most feared curse on Babylon. King Nebuchadnezzar II, a name that resonates with both power and mystery, was no ordinary ruler. Have you ever wondered what it's like to be at the helm of the most powerful empire of the ancient world? Nebuchadnezzar's reign, lasting from 605 to 562 BC, marks the zenith of Babylon's glory. During his rule, the kingdom wasn't just a political entity. It was a symbol of strength, wealth, and artistic grandeur. But how did this king, who commanded so much, find himself in the clutches of divine transformation? Babylon, under Nebuchadnezzar, was known for its magnificent wealth, military might, and awe-inspiring architecture. Perhaps the most renowned of his achievements was the construction of the Hanging Gardens of Babylon. Can you imagine a lush, green paradise rising in the heart of a desert, a monument to the king's splendor and vision? Though historians still debate its existence, the legend alone speaks volumes about the luxury and opulence that defined his reign. The gardens were said to be an oasis, an architectural wonder, a symbol of what Nebuchadnezzar had accomplished. But was it only the gardens that made his empire grand, or was there something deeper to the king's legacy? In addition to his architectural feats, Nebuchadnezzar was a brilliant military strategist. He conquered vast territories, extending Babylon's influence to nearly every corner of the ancient world. His victories were numerous, but one in particular would leave a lasting impact on biblical history: his conquest of Judah, the kingdom of God's chosen people. In 586 BC, he led the siege and destruction of Jerusalem. How did this king, revered by many, come to destroy the sacred city of God's people? What was it about this moment that made it a fulfillment of God's prophecy? The fall of Jerusalem was a devastating event for the Israelites, one that saw the city's walls crumbled and the glorious Temple of Solomon reduced to ash. Nebuchadnezzar didn't just conquer a city. He brought about the Babylonian exile, forcing the Israelites into captivity. The loss was more than a political defeat. It was the fulfillment of God's warning to the people for their disobedience. Was this king's conquest a sign of divine judgment? Could it be that Nebuchadnezzar's victories were actually part of God's plan for his people? But Nebuchadnezzar's story doesn't end with his victories. What happens when a king, so accustomed to ruling with absolute power, forgets the one who granted him that power? How do you think someone with so much control and influence would react when faced with the humbling hand of God? In the coming chapters of his life, we'll see how Nebuchadnezzar's arrogance, driven by his power and pride, led him to a dramatic and humbling transformation. What does it take for a king who ruled entire nations to be brought to the lowest depths of insanity? Could it be that his downfall was not a punishment, but a lesson for all who forget that even the greatest of kings answer to a higher power? How do you think God might be calling us today to remain humble despite any success we might achieve? Nebuchadnezzar's legacy as a conqueror, builder, and ruler of one of the greatest empires of the ancient world is unquestionable. He was a central figure, a man whose name reverberated through the lands he ruled. Yet as mighty as he was, it was his relationship with the God of Israel that would set him apart in the biblical narrative. Have you ever considered how a king of such immense power could find his story so deeply intertwined with the God of a people he conquered? What would it be like to be confronted by a higher power, especially when you spent your life believing that you were the one who held all the authority? Despite being a pagan king who worshipped many gods, Nebuchadnezzar's encounters with the true God, Israel's God, were profound. These interactions, at first strange and unsettling, began to shape the course of his life in ways that he could not have foreseen. What must it have been like for Nebuchadnezzar to hear that the God of Israel had a message for him, a king who had conquered nations and destroyed cities? In the book of Daniel, we first encounter Nebuchadnezzar as he is troubled by dreams that not even his magicians, enchanters, or wise men could interpret. Imagine being a king, having all the wealth and wisdom at your disposal, yet feeling utterly helpless in the face of a mystery that seems to threaten your peace. What do you do when the power and knowledge that have served you so well no longer provide the answers you need? It was Daniel, a young Hebrew captive, who stepped forward with the divine insight needed to interpret these dreams. How could a captive, a man from a conquered nation, possess the wisdom that the mightiest of kings could not find? Daniel's gift wasn't his own. It came from the God of Israel. Daniel revealed the mysteries of the dream, showing the king a great statue made of different materials, each symbolizing different kingdoms that would rise and fall. In this moment, Nebuchadnezzar was confronted with a truth that he could not deny. The God of Israel had power beyond what he could ever imagine. In Daniel chapter 2, as the dream is interpreted, Daniel boldly tells the king, "Your Majesty, you are the King of Kings. The God of heaven has given you dominion and power, and might and glory. In your hands he has placed all mankind and the beasts of the field, and the birds in the sky, wherever they live. He has made you ruler over them all. You are that head of gold." Daniel 2, verses 37 through 38. Can you feel the weight of those words? Here was a king, accustomed to ruling with unchallenged authority, being told that his power was not his own, that it had been granted by a God much greater than he. What do you think Nebuchadnezzar felt in that moment? Perhaps awe, maybe even fear. He had been told the truth about his position, and that truth was humbling. How do you react when you realize that your rise to power and success was not due to your own efforts, but to the will of a higher power? This verse from Daniel holds the key to understanding Nebuchadnezzar's story. It reveals that his rise to power, his vast empire, and the dominion he held over the world were all part of God's sovereign plan.
Could it be that every leader, every empire, every kingdom is part of a divine orchestration, placed exactly where God allows them to be? As it says in Romans 13:1, "Let everyone be subject to the governing authorities, for there is no authority except that which God has established."
Nebuchadnezzar's authority was given by God, and this truth would soon become undeniable. But what happens when a king, in all his glory, forgets the source of his power. When a ruler believes that his success is solely the result of his own brilliance and strength, what can God do to remind him of his sovereignty? Could Nebuchadnezzar's path be a warning to all who rise to power, whether kings, leaders, or individuals, about the dangers of pride and the necessity of recognizing God's hand in all things? As we continue Nebuchadnezzar's story, we'll see how God's divine plan for him unfolds in ways that are both astonishing and humbling. How would you respond if you were Nebuchadnezzar, the mighty king, told that your greatness was not yours to keep? Would you bow to the truth, or would you resist, as so many do when confronted by the divine? But power, as it often does, began to whisper a dangerous lie into Nebuchadnezzar's heart, that he alone was the source of his own greatness. And slowly that lie took root. His pride swelled with every victory, with every tower that scraped the heavens, with every nation that bowed to him. The same man who had once heard the voice of God through Daniel now started to tune out the divine melody, replacing it with the sound of his own applause. Have you ever found yourself standing on a mountaintop, forgetting who carried you up the hill? Nebuchadnezzar's story mirrors a timeless pattern we see throughout history. When success multiplies, humility often fades. He became blinded by his accomplishments, assuming that it was by his strength, his wisdom, his strategy that Babylon had reached such towering glory. And in doing so, he unknowingly placed himself on the very throne that belongs to God alone. The danger of this pride was not hidden for long. A chilling moment reveals just how deeply Nebuchadnezzar had fallen into the illusion of self-exaltation. He constructed a golden image, an enormous, awe-inspiring idol, and demanded that all bow before it. When Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego, the faithful servants of the Most High, refused to bend their knees, the king's pride turned to fury. In his rage, he ordered them to be cast into a furnace, heated 7 times hotter than usual. What kind of heart burns hotter than a furnace when faced with defiance? This wasn't just about disobedience to a king. It was a spiritual confrontation. Nebuchadnezzar had made a god in his own image, demanding worship as if he held the universe in his hands. But the God of Israel had other plans. As the flames raged, something miraculous happened. The 3 men walked unharmed through the fire, and a 4th figure appeared among them, one that Nebuchadnezzar himself described as looking like a son of the gods. And in awe he called them out and acknowledged their deliverance. Praise be to the God of Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego, who has sent his angel and rescued his servants. Daniel chapter 3, verse 28. And yet, even after witnessing the impossible, Nebuchadnezzar's heart did not fully bow. Yes, he spoke words of admiration. He even issued a royal decree honoring the God who could save from flames. But admiration is not the same as submission. His heart, though shaken, remained unbroken. He respected God's power, but refused to surrender his pride. How many times have we admired God's work in someone else's life, but still refused to give him full control of our own? How often do people praise miracles without letting them change their hearts? God had reached out to Nebuchadnezzar through dreams, through Daniel's wisdom, and now through fire. But something deeper still had to happen. The proud king had seen God's power. Now he would have to encounter God's judgment. Not out of cruelty, but out of love. Because sometimes the only way to rescue a soul drowning in pride is to bring it to its knees. What would it take for a man like Nebuchadnezzar to finally let go of his throne? The answer lies just ahead, and it is unlike anything you would expect. Stay with this story, because the next chapter does not begin with a decree, but with a descent. Nebuchadnezzar had already tasted the mystery of heaven when Daniel interpreted his first dream. But what came next would pierce far deeper. This time, it wouldn't be about the fate of distant kingdoms. It would be a divine message aimed squarely at the king's own soul. Have you ever felt that something in the silence of the night was trying to speak to you directly, bypassing all logic and striking the core of your being? In the opening of Daniel chapter 4, the mighty king begins speaking not as a ruler issuing decrees, but as a man gripped by fear. He recounts a strange and troubling dream that refused to leave him in peace. Despite all his power, despite commanding the greatest empire of the time, something about this vision haunted him. What kind of dream could disturb a man who held the fate of nations in his hand? As he had done before, Nebuchadnezzar summoned his wise men, astrologers, enchanters, and magicians trained in the ancient arts of Babylon. They stood in golden halls lined with knowledge and scrolls. But even in the presence of such worldly wisdom, not one of them could decipher what heaven had whispered to the king. Why were they silent? Why did their words fail in this moment of crisis? Could it be that human knowledge, no matter how vast, always falls short when God decides to speak? This pattern should feel familiar. The Bible often highlights this contrast. God's voice does not follow the wisdom of men. Paul would later echo this in 1 Corinthians 1:25. The foolishness of God is wiser than human wisdom. In Nebuchadnezzar's court, that truth was on full display. Not one of the king's most trusted men could unlock the meaning of the dream. So where do you turn when all your usual answers collapse? Finally, Daniel was called, known by his Babylonian name, Belteshazzar. By now, his reputation had grown. He had already stood before the king and interpreted dreams that no other man dared to touch. But this time felt different. The king spoke with a strange blend of trust and confusion. He said, "I know that the spirit of the holy gods is in you, and no mystery is too difficult for you." Daniel 4:18. He recognized something divine in Daniel, but did he truly understand where that spirit came from? Have you ever seen the truth in someone but couldn't yet name its source? Have you ever respected the presence of God without realizing it was Him? Nebuchadnezzar admired Daniel, but he still thought in the language of many gods, of divine fragments. He didn't yet grasp that Daniel served one God, holy, sovereign, and jealous for the hearts of kings and captives alike. And now, that God was about to send a message more personal than ever before. Daniel stood ready, but the meaning of this dream would not be like the last. It would not speak of empires rising after Babylon. It would not concern distant future events. This dream was a mirror, and it was about to show Nebuchadnezzar a reflection he wasn't prepared to see. So what do you do when the truth stares back at you with eyes of fire? What happens when the message from God isn't about others, but about you? This is where the real confrontation begins. The dream had come, the court had gathered, the prophet was in place. But the meaning? That still waits to be revealed. Are you ready to hear it? Now, imagine lying in your royal bed, wrapped in luxury and silence, only to be shown a vision so vast, so vivid, it refuses to leave your mind. That's exactly what happened to Nebuchadnezzar. As he drifted into sleep, a divine message took root in his spirit. He didn't wake up to the noise of battle or rebellion, but to a tree. Not just any tree, but one unlike any seen on earth. Towering, majestic, a living monument that reached the sky, casting its shadow across the world. In Daniel 4, verses 10 through 12, the king describes it in his own words. "I looked, and there before me stood a tree in the middle of the land. Its height was enormous. The tree grew large and strong, and its top touched the sky. It was visible to the ends of the earth. Its leaves were beautiful, its fruit abundant, and on it was food for all. Under it, the wild animals found shelter, and the birds lived in its branches. From it, every creature was fed. But what did it mean? Symbolism here is profound. This wasn't just a tree, it was a portrait of power. It represented Nebuchadnezzar himself, standing in the center of the world like an unshakable pillar. Every leaf that shimmered in the sun was a sign of his prosperity. Every fruit, a token of the wealth he provided. Every branch, a refuge for nations who had come under Babylon's rule. Even the wild animals and birds, creatures that normally roam free, found rest in his shade. Isn't it curious how God chose such a beautiful image to begin this message? Could it be that sometimes judgment begins not with destruction, but with beauty too grand to ignore? At this moment in history, Babylon wasn't just surviving, it was thriving. The city's hanging gardens, its towering gates, its endless riches made it the wonder of the world. And at the heart of it all stood Nebuchadnezzar. He was the embodiment of Babylon's strength, the one who fed its people, ruled its territories, and projected his might across continents. Like the tree visible to the ends of the earth, Nebuchadnezzar saw himself as untouchable, his influence limitless. But does a tree know when it's grown too tall? Can it feel when its roots have reached too far? Here's the mystery. This dream didn't begin with destruction. It began with glory. That's what makes it all the more haunting. It paints a vision of something powerful and good, but something that would not last. Why would God show such beauty if he planned to cut it down? That's the question lingering in the air. And it's what makes this dream more than just a warning. It's a revelation, a reflection, a reminder that what seems immovable to men is still completely within the reach of heaven. Have you ever built something so magnificent that you thought nothing could bring it down? Have you ever stood tall, unaware that the axe was already laid at the root? What Nebuchadnezzar didn't realize yet was that this glorious tree, his empire, his identity, his pride, was about to face a divine decree.
And that's where the vision takes a sudden, chilling turn. What comes next will shake even the tallest tree to its core.
The vision had begun in splendor, with the tree so mighty it seemed eternal. But suddenly, the tone shifted. Nebuchadnezzar, still lying in the safety of his bed, found his dream pierced by a voice. Not just any voice, but one sent directly from heaven. In Daniel chapter 4, verses 13-14, the king recounts, "In the visions I saw while lying in bed, I looked, and there before me was a holy one, a messenger coming down from heaven. He called in a loud voice, 'Cut down the tree and trim off its branches. Strip off its leaves and scatter its fruit. Let the animals flee from under it and the birds from its branches.'" Plunge, can you picture the scene? One moment, the tree stands proud, offering shelter to the world. The next, a divine command echoes through the heavens. The branches that had once stretched like arms across empires are ordered to be trimmed. The lush leaves, symbols of prosperity, are stripped away. The fruit, once abundant, is scattered to the winds. And all who once depended on it, creatures of every kind, flee in fear. What would it feel like to watch everything you built begin to unravel, not because of war or betrayal, but because heaven itself had spoken? This Holy One, this divine messenger, was not delivering a warning. He was issuing judgment. The order was clear. The tree must fall. And that tree, as Daniel would later confirm, was Nebuchadnezzar himself. The once glorious king, the source of strength for an entire empire, was about to be brought low, not by enemy swords or political revolt, but by the hand of the Almighty. The judgment was personal, and it was coming quickly. But just as the axe was raised, a glimmer of mercy shone through. In Daniel chapter 4, verse 15, we hear a surprising instruction. "But let the stump and its roots, bound with iron and bronze, remain in the ground, in the grass of the field." Why leave the stump? Why not destroy it completely? This small detail is loaded with meaning. Though the tree would fall, its roots would remain. God was not erasing Nebuchadnezzar. He was humbling him. The iron and bronze bindings suggest a controlled judgment, a fall that would not go beyond what God allowed. Even in his wrath, God was preserving a path to redemption. Have you ever felt stripped down, broken, but still strangely held? The mercy of God often works in ways that confuse human logic. He tears down not to destroy, but to rebuild. He removes crowns not out of cruelty, but to teach us who the true king is. Can you recognize this pattern in your own life? Have there been moments when God removed something you leaned on, only to reveal what your foundation truly was? This part of the dream reminds us that divine judgment always carries the seed of restoration, if we're willing to face the truth and bow in humility. Nebuchadnezzar's kingdom would tremble, his identity would be shattered, but his story wasn't over. The stump still lived. The roots still reached deep. God was making a statement not just to a king, but to every soul that exalts itself above the heavens. No throne is secure without submission to the one who reigns over all. And now, with the tree fallen and the stump bound, the stage was set for the final act of transformation. But how far would God go to turn the heart of a king? That we're about to find out.
The throne room was likely silent when Daniel spoke. A silence so heavy, it might have drowned the breath in every chest. The proudest king on earth had just heard the unthinkable, from a captive no less. Not only would his kingdom tremble, but he himself would fall into madness. The vision of the tree, once towering and beautiful, now had a terrifying face, and that face was his own. In Daniel 4:24 and 25, the prophet speaks with solemnity and fear. "This is the interpretation, Your Majesty, and this is the decree the Most High has issued against my lord the king. You will be driven away from people, and will live with the wild animals. You will eat grass like the ox, and be drenched with the dew of heaven. 7 times will pass by for you, until you acknowledge that the Most High is sovereign over all kingdoms on earth, and gives them to anyone he wishes." What must have flashed through Nebuchadnezzar's mind in that moment? A king worshipped by nations, reduced to crawling on all fours, stripped of reason, dignity, and voice. Can you imagine hearing that your royal garments would be replaced by dew-soaked skin, your golden feasts by wild grass? This wasn't just judgment, it was a divine reckoning. The Most High wasn't punishing Nebuchadnezzar at random. No, this was a carefully crafted descent, tailor-made for a man who believed he was untouchable. Isn't it remarkable how God doesn't just judge what we do, he aims straight at the lie that we believe most? Nebuchadnezzar's lie was pride. Pride in his empire, pride in his self-made image, pride in his control. But God was about to show him that dominion belongs not to men but to heaven. For 7 long years, the king who once ruled from a throne of gold would be exiled to the wilderness. He would not sleep in silk but under open skies. He would not dine in palaces but graze in fields. Was the stripping of identity, the unraveling of human ego. And yet, amid this warning, a thread of hope remained. Daniel, though deeply grieved by the vision, did not deliver it without mercy. He pleaded with the king in verse 27. "Therefore, Your Majesty, be pleased to accept my advice. Renounce your sins by doing what is right, and your wickedness by being kind to the oppressed. It may be that then your prosperity will continue." This moment reveals so much about the heart of God. Even in the shadow of judgment, he offers a door to mercy. Have you ever stood at the edge of consequences and been offered one final chance to turn back? Daniel's plea was just that, a final call before the storm. He didn't offer religious rituals or empty sacrifices. He offered righteousness and compassion. Turn from injustice, be kind to the oppressed, break the chain of your arrogance, and maybe, just maybe, this tree won't fall.
What does it say about God that even the most arrogant king, the one who built idols and burned men alive, was still given a way out? Could it be that no matter how high we climb or how far we fall, the hand of God is always reaching, waiting for humility? This wasn't just a warning to a king. It's a mirror to every heart that leans on power, applause, or pride. What would it take for you to renounce the throne you've built and admit who truly rules? The dream had been revealed. The decree had been spoken. The invitation to repent had been made. And now, all of heaven seemed to hold its breath, waiting for the king's response. But would Nebuchadnezzar listen? Or would pride write the next chapter of his fall? For 12 long months after the dream, heaven waited. Nebuchadnezzar had been shown mercy. A divine warning had been issued, a clear interpretation delivered, and even a heartfelt plea for repentance offered by Daniel. But what did the king do with it? Nothing. Or rather, he did what many of us do when confronted by truth. He paused, considered it for a moment, and then returned to life as usual. Have you ever received a wake-up call only to hit snooze? The days passed, the urgency faded, and the pride? It remained. A full year after the vision, the Bible paints a striking scene. The king was walking on the roof of his palace in Babylon, but this was not just a casual stroll. This moment was charged with symbolism. Nebuchadnezzar was literally looking down on his kingdom from above, a man who believed himself to be untouchable, elevated not just by stone and mortar, but by his own self-glorification. Can you see him there, robe flowing, gaze sweeping across the sprawling city below? It's as if the height of the palace reflected the height of his ego. This was no ordinary palace. It was a wonder of the world, lavish, powerful, majestic. The famous hanging gardens bloomed below, perhaps glistening with the morning dew. The mighty walls of Babylon stretched into the distance, so thick that chariots could ride across the top. Temples shimmered with gold. Statues of gods and kings lined the streets. Everything Nebuchadnezzar laid his eyes on seemed to whisper one thing: "You built this." And that whisper soon became a shout. In Daniel 4, verse 30, Nebuchadnezzar declared aloud, "Fall back, is not this the great Babylon I have built as the royal residence, by my mighty power and for the glory of my majesty?" Inamized, his heart was revealed in full. No mention of God, no gratitude, no humility. Just, "I have built by my power for my glory." How often do we do the same? Crediting our strength for the life we've built, the success we've achieved, the favor we've enjoyed, forgetting who truly made it possible. This wasn't simply a boast. It was a theological error, a rebellion in words. For a man who had been told explicitly that his power was a gift from heaven, Daniel 2, 37 through 38, to now claim that power as his own creation was to deny the very truth God had shown him. Nebuchadnezzar had allowed his achievements to blind him. Babylon, the jewel of the ancient world, had become not just a city to govern, but an idol to worship. And the idol was not Marduk or Baal. It was himself. Have you ever built something so carefully, so skillfully, that you forgot you were using borrowed tools? Nebuchadnezzar believed he had reached the summit of human greatness. He saw no higher throne than his own. But what he failed to realize is that the higher you place yourself without God, the farther you have to fall. At that very moment, at the peak of his arrogance, the voice of heaven broke through the silence once again. Judgment was no longer approaching. It had arrived.
But what would that judgment look like? Would the Most High tear down the city, strike the king dead? Or would he choose something far more personal? Something designed not just to punish, but to transform? The answer is as haunting as it is divine, and it changes everything. The rooftop declaration had barely passed through Nebuchadnezzar's lips when heaven responded, not with delay, not with negotiation, but with divine finality. Can you imagine boasting about your greatness and, in the very next breath, hearing your sentence spoken from the skies? In Daniel 4, verses 31 through 32, we're told, "Unfinished as the words were on his lips, a voice came from heaven. This is what is decreed for you, King Nebuchadnezzar. Your royal authority has been taken from you. You will be driven away from people and will live with the wild animals. You will eat grass like the ox. 7 times will pass by for you until you acknowledge that the Most High is sovereign over all kingdoms on earth and gives them to anyone he wishes." No warning shot, no wrecked voice of judgment crashing into his prideful moment. Do you think he felt a chill in the air as the words thundered down? Did the golden city around him seem to dim in that instant? The judgment was not just about removing his title. God dismantled him completely. His mind fractured, his human dignity vanished. The mighty king of Babylon was immediately cast out, no longer among men, no longer on a throne, no longer clothed in royal garments. The transformation was sudden and total. The voice from heaven did not merely declare punishment, it executed it on the spot. And what was the form of this punishment? Madness, isolation, dehumanization. Nebuchadnezzar, who had once ruled nations with iron and gold, now wandered fields like a wild beast. "You will eat grass like the ox," the voice said, and so he did. He was drenched with the dew of heaven, no longer protected by marble halls or silk canopies. His hair grew long and matted like eagle's feathers. His fingernails twisted and hardened like the claws of a bird. Daniel 4:33. Can you picture it? A man who once sat on the highest throne, now crawling in the dirt, ruled by instinct instead of reason. Why would God choose such a humiliating form of judgment? Because this was not just about power, it was about perception. Nebuchadnezzar had to see himself as he truly was, a man, not a god, mortal, not sovereign, temporary, not eternal. Have you ever experienced a moment so humbling it shattered the way you saw yourself? Pride is more than arrogance, it is blindness. It convinces us that we are the source, the center, the strength. And God, in His mercy, will sometimes go to great lengths to tear that illusion down, not to destroy us, but to deliver us. Nebuchadnezzar's fall was not the end, it was the beginning of clarity. A period widely understood as 7 years, he lived like this. 7 years away from civilization, 7 years of silence, of dew and dirt, of being ignored by the very empire he once ruled. But why 7? The number 7 in the Bible often symbolizes completeness, divine order. Could it be that this long season was the exact amount of time needed to fully break the chains of pride? Each day was a chisel to his ego. Each sunrise reminded him he no longer controlled time. Each blade of grass he chewed was a lesson in dependence. And through it all, heaven waited. Not for his destruction, but for his surrender. Have you ever gone through a season that felt like exile? One where everything was stripped away, not out of wrath, but to reveal the truth of who you are and who God is. The image of Nebuchadnezzar crawling in a field isn't just ancient history, it's a mirror, a warning, a divine echo that reminds us, those who walk in pride, He is able to humble. But even in this judgment, the stump remained. The root was not destroyed. And when God leaves a stump, it means He's not finished yet. The question now was simple, but soul-shaking. Would Nebuchadnezzar finally look up? Would the beast give way to the man, and the man to a worshiper? That answer was coming, and when it did, it would be nothing short of a miracle. Now we come to the heart of it all, the question that echoes through the ages. Why did God turn King Nebuchadnezzar into an animal? Why not simply remove him from the throne, or strike him with sickness or defeat in battle? Why this strange, wild, humiliating descent into madness? The answer is both terrifying and beautiful. This was not a random punishment. This was a divine lesson, one designed with precision and purpose. God was not only dealing with a king's pride, he was revealing a truth that every generation must face. God alone is sovereign, and human pride is the fastest path to spiritual blindness. Nebuchadnezzar's transformation wasn't merely about judgment. It was about revelation. He had reached the summit of worldly power, crowned in gold, celebrated by nations, praised by men. But what happens when a man who sits at the top no longer sees the one who put him there? Have you ever reached a point in life where the blessings became so loud you forgot the blesser? Nebuchadnezzar had made a fatal assumption that his success was self-made, that Babylon was the work of his hands, that his throne was the result of his wisdom, his might, his strategy. He had become the very embodiment of pride, the very thing the scriptures relentlessly warn against. Shill Proverbs 16:18 doesn't leave room for ambiguity. Pride goes before destruction, and a haughty spirit before a fall. Ragaz doesn't despise achievement, he empowers it. But he despises pride that erases him from the story, and Nebuchadnezzar had erased God completely from his narrative. So God rewrote it. Turning the king into a beast was not just poetic irony, it was prophetic truth. It was as if God said, "You have exalted yourself to the heights of heaven, but you have forgotten your humanity. So now you will learn it, not in palaces, but in the wild." The beast-like state reflected what pride does to the soul. Pride dehumanizes us. It blinds us. It disconnects us from truth and community until we're isolated, driven by instinct rather than reason. Isn't that what happens even now when someone allows their ego to devour their empathy, their humility, their peace? And yet, even in the judgment, God's mercy was not far off. Psalm 24 verse 1 reminds us, "The earth is the Lord's and everything in it, the world and all who live in it." Nebuchadnezzar had forgotten this, but God in his love determined to remind him. Not with a whisper, but with an experience so raw that it would break through even the thickest armor of pride. For 7 years, 7 long, quiet, humbling years, Nebuchadnezzar wandered. Alone, insane, animal-like, a man without reason, a king without a crown. But something sacred was happening beneath the surface, a slow undoing of arrogance, a quiet awakening. Trencher. Still Lext. Feel the sauls. I stop, I work out you hell. The crew fall, the one the eyes gazed can get on. He can rip off to dams, and doing the skill. The wronger's light, and they can be open to summers. The lens, being as God. Have you ever had to be broken, just to finally lift your eyes? Only then, only after this deep recognition of God's authority, was Nebuchadnezzar's sanity restored. And with that restoration came something even more miraculous. His throne was returned. His honor was given back. But now he knew it was never truly his. It had always belonged to God. Ambitions is not just a history lesson. It is a mirror. It asks us to examine our own hearts. Where have we taken credit that belongs to God? What blessings have we turned into monuments to ourselves? And more importantly, what might God be trying to teach us before pride writes our downfall? Nebuchadnezzar's beastly season ended the moment he acknowledged God's sovereignty. Your restoration might begin at the same place, when you raise your eyes to heaven and remember who truly reigns. Because even in judgment, God's goal was always redemption. And no one, not even the proudest king, is beyond his reach. Just like that, the wilderness season ended. After 7 long years of crawling in the dust, drenched by heaven's dew, stripped of his dignity and reason, something shifted. The moment Nebuchadnezzar lifted his eyes to heaven, everything changed. Sanity returned. Clarity broke through the fog. And with that clarity came something even more astonishing than his fall, his restoration. Nebuchadnezzar wasn't just healed in mind, he was restored in position. In Daniel 4:36, the once broken king testifies, "At the same time that my sanity was restored, my honor and splendor were returned to me, for the glory of my kingdom. My advisors and nobles sought me out, and I was restored to my throne and became even greater than before." Probation for a moment and let that sink in. This wasn't a chord, it was a royal redemption. The man who had been dismissed as mad returned to the throne. The king who had wandered in humiliation was welcomed back with honor. The ruler who once glorified himself was now glorifying the God of heaven. How was that possible? Because God's mercy isn't just about forgiving sin. It's about writing a new ending. Nebuchadnezzar's advisors and nobles didn't abandon him. They sought him out. His throne wasn't taken by another. A king who descended into madness, only to rise in worship. Yes, Nebuchadnezzar returned to his throne, but more importantly, he returned to his senses. And even more than that, he returned to God. So what does that mean for you? If God could humble the greatest king on earth and then lift him back up, what could he do in your life? If he could redeem a man lost in pride and madness, how far is his mercy willing to go to restore you? The story of Nebuchadnezzar is not just about judgment. It's about a God who disciplines those he loves and who lifts up all who finally lift their eyes. He is still the King of heaven, and he is still writing redemption stories. Will you let him write yours? Nebuchadnezzar's story is not just a relic of ancient history. It's a living message, echoing across time into our modern hearts. Though his crown has long since turned to dust, the warning and the wonder of his journey still speak loudly today. Why? Because pride has never gone extinct. We may not rule empires like Babylon, but pride can still rule our hearts. Whether it's the titles we chase, the homes we build, or the praise we crave, it's easy to believe that our achievements are ours alone. But Nebuchadnezzar's story reminds us that everything we have is a gift, and without the giver, it all loses meaning. When we begin to exalt ourselves, to take credit for what God has entrusted to us, we walk a dangerous line. Pride doesn't always roar, it often whispers. And when we stop acknowledging our dependence on God, we're already beginning to fall. But here's the good news. God doesn't humble us to ruin us. He humbles us to rescue us. He breaks the illusion so he can build us in truth. Like Nebuchadnezzar, we may find ourselves in a wilderness, in a season of silence or loss. But that may be the very place where grace begins to grow. God humbles so he can lift. He wounds so he can heal. Nebuchadnezzar's fall was real, but so was his restoration. And in the end, His greatest act wasn't building Babylon. It was bowing before the King of Heaven. So what's the lesson for us? True greatness isn't measured by power, success, or applause. It's measured by humility before God. It's found in a heart that says, "You, Lord, are the source of it all." Thank you for walking with us through this incredible journey of transformation, warning, and redemption. If this message spoke to your heart, please give this video a thumbs up and consider subscribing to our channel for more biblical truth and encouragement.
Leave a comment below and let us know what part of Nebuchadnezzar's story challenged you or inspired you the most. And don't forget to share this video with someone who needs to be reminded that even in failure, God's grace writes a greater ending. May God bless you, and remember, the way up always begins by bowing down.